So why don't you start off by just introducing yourself, if you can, in less than a minute?
Great, good challenge. My name is George Anastazi. I'm British Cypriot, often get mistaken as like Saudi or Kuwaiti or anything Pakistani, anything that's not Cypriot. I've lived in 8 different countries. My dad was an expat teacher, much like I am, much like you were, and still are.
Yes.
And so he just enjoyed like lugging us around the whole world, like luggage, literally. Every 2-3 years we would move, and yeah, that's become a really huge part of my identity. And I can't really imagine not doing that. So now I've become a bit of a nomad. Yeah, and other than that, my biggest passion is drama. I love theatre.
Nice, nice. Well, I love your YouTube channel.
Thank
Like,
you. Thank you so much.
I'd love to just hear a little bit about the background of kind of how you started that and what led you to starting a channel. I mean, you've only been on YouTube like a few weeks, so it's really early days. But I find your videos very entertaining and engaging, and I think you might have a kind of a bit of a side career in store for you there. Fingers crossed.
Thank you, Mike. That's really, really humbling coming from you. Yeah, I mean, I've been meaning to do it for quite some time. While I was doing my master's in the UK, I had an idea about like sharing stories about my experiences. We've had so many experiences, moving around, and I just feel like, I feel so passionate about telling them, especially when I'm with my friends and they enjoy listening. And I also feel really passionate about, different cultures, and love watching documentaries about different subcultures. So, and also I did a journalism degree, so I'm passionate about delivering stories. And so I really felt the need to channel that passion into something, and I felt like YouTube was a really good platform for that. And like now that we're quarantined, I feel like it's a really good time to do that, especially because we're doing e-learning now. But trust me, e-learning is not easy. Like there's a lot of work with e-learning, but it does afford you time and flexibility to be able to make videos. And so I'm really glad to have finally been able to make videos. I'm really enjoying it. It's a challenging journey, and to be honest, Mike, you have inspired a lot of my, like, the reason why I've done it. Before I came to Kuwait, like when I was deciding whether or not I should get a job in Kuwait, I remember watching you, and you kind of your videos kind of convinced me to move over, because it seemed like I learned through your videos that that the Kuwaitis are quite open people and things like that, and I found that really intriguing. So yeah, and so connecting to the question you had about why I started a YouTube channel, that later influenced me to kind of make something. So you are definitely a big influence.
Cool. It's great. Well, no, that's fantastic. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of the people who find my channel, some of them stay, some of them just come and go. But a lot of the people who find my content, my stuff, are people who like you and me, like maybe Brits or Americans or Canadians or French and whatever, kind of like your European, your American kind of type people. And then they're the ones who are thinking about going to the Middle East, and they have no clue what it's like, right? Because why would you, unless you've ever been there? So part of my kind of goal is always to show people and tell people what the Middle East is really like, because there's a lot of different stories you hear, different misconceptions. So I'd love to ask you about, first of all, the countries you've lived in, and could you just list off those 8 countries, first of all? Like, which countries have you lived in your life? And by the way, how old are you? Because I don't think I asked you that, if you don't mind saying.
I'm 27.
Okay, so so we're about the
same. I do mind saying, actually. No, I'm joking.
Oh,
Anyways, no, I've lived in Cyprus, Bahrain, Malaysia, Zambia, the UK, China, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. So Kuwait's actually my 9th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So let's see. I remember most of those. There's a couple there that I don't have any links with, like Zambia. But I think most of them, like, we've got a lot to chat about. So you're British Cypriot now.
Yes.
You've lived in Bahrain, Saudi. I'm ashamed to say it, but I've still never been to Saudi.
Yeah.
I need to go there, and I was going to go there this year now that they've got the visas. And of course, this happened. We're all locked down. But what's your kind of your summary as somebody who's British and has lived in the Middle East? If someone came up to you, oh, George, I'm thinking about moving to Saudi Arabia, but I'm a bit scared. Like, should I do it? Should I not? Like, what's it like living in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait? Obviously, they're all subtly different as well in their own right. But what's it like to actually move to one of these countries and to live there and to get a new job and get a new life?
Yes. Okay. So as you said, there are subtle differences. But what I would say is, okay, life there's a lot of ease for sure. If you want to compare it to the UK, there is a lot more ease in terms of, daily life and logistics, like the simplest things, like, I don't know, like buying groceries from the supermarket and how you get your groceries from the supermarket to getting home. Like there's just a lot easier ways to do things. And so I think that's something that's really appealing. It might be like, it definitely is daunting at first to think about it. I remember when my dad told me that we were moving to Saudi. And I remember I live in a little apartment in Cyprus, and I think he was in Saudi for his interview, and he messaged me, and I think he told me he got the job, or there was some confirmation that we were moving to Saudi. So I started like Googling it on Yahoo Answers or whatever we used to do back then. And people were saying like, don't go to Saudi, it's absolutely horrific. Like, it just scared me so much. Like, I got terrified to move there because people were saying, you're going to get robbed, you're going to get hurt, you're going to get killed, and all of this crazy stuff. Moving there was such a different thing. Like, first of all, in Saudi, because I think Saudi is like the most extreme example, and people have the most there's the most common misconceptions with Saudi. It's really a protected lifestyle. Like, what I can say is from my 4 years of living there, I didn't actually genuinely go out into Saudi as much as I would have liked to, which is the reason I'd like to go back, because there are compounds, you're very much protected, they're very high security, and it's like a Western haven in there. So like, women can't drive outside, but women can drive in compounds, right? And like, there are compounds that are humongous, like the Saudi Aramco compound, for instance. It's huge. It's like a blooming like city, literally. Like, there are highways, there are skate parks, there are commissaries, that you can go to. And so you, as an expat, you can live there without actually feeling like you're in Saudi, like, and if that's your kind of thing. But if you are the kind of person who wants to venture out and wants to explore, then the Saudi people that I've come across are, very approachable. You may be daunted by the idea of, a lady covered, or the clothes that they wear, but when you actually approach them and talk to them, they're actually very hospitable. And when you become friends with them, and I remember you saying this once in your video, Mike, that once you become friends with them, they're very, very passionately your friend. Like, they really take you in as their own, and it's like, my house is your house, and it's very much like and I would say that, yeah, exactly. And I would say that that's very much common in all the GCC countries that I've been to, that I've lived in. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with all of that. And let's just let's go to Kuwait for a minute. So tell me about your experience in Kuwait. How long did you live in Kuwait? Or because the way I understand it is you're currently a drama teacher in Kuwait, right? So tell me a bit about that. And how was your experience in Kuwait? Maybe different or the same from Saudi?
Kuwait was the biggest eye-opener for me, because I'd lived in Dubai for 5 years. So it's interesting because I spent my whole teenagehood in Saudi, teenage years, and then the beginning of my adulthood, like from 20 years old to 25, in Dubai. So at that point, the Middle East had really felt like home. I went to the UK to study my master's in advanced theatre practice. And when I finished, my heart was just yearning to go back to the Middle East. I just missed it, you know? And so, you know, my dad being my dad, put a lot of pressure on me to find a teaching job because, you know, he's a teacher and all of that. And so I searched for a teaching job, got one, and was really excited. So when I got there, the biggest eye-openers for me in Kuwait were that the Kuwaiti people are way more open and cultured and like in touch with the West and the East, just very worldly minded than most other GCC, not to sound too like political or anything, but then most GCC people I've come across, and there are so many like cultural events, and especially for like a creative like myself, like I felt like I was, so you compare Dubai and you compare Kuwait, and if you ask someone who just knew them from like a distant standpoint and just saw it on the news, they would probably say, oh, of course Dubai would have way more like opportunities in terms of like creativity and all of that, and it does in many ways, but in terms of like authentic creativity and like Kuwaitis leading creative projects, it's just not comparable. Like Dubai is very much all of the projects are very much led by expats. Like the Emiratis very rarely get involved, but with the Kuwaitis, like, and that's the same with making friends with them as well. Like it's hard to kind of penetrate the circles, in my experience, with Emiratis, but with Kuwaitis, like it's so easy. They're everywhere. Like I do salsa classes there, and like almost more than half of them are Kuwaiti, and I'm like, what?
They're a bit more like I think they're a little bit more approachable, right? Like you can kind of, there isn't the same maybe barrier that you might find in other countries. Obviously it depends as well, but no, I totally agree. Like with a Kuwaiti, like they'll kind of just welcome you in like very easily, and it's there's not such like the barrier. I mean, if you compare, I mean, going back to what you said about like the friendships, like when I talk to Arabs in this country, in the UK and abroad, it's like UK people are cold and like they're barriered, like they're kind of like they're friends, but like it's just different. It's like I remember some Jordanian guys who described like, well, if you have a British mate, they're like your mate, but they're not like your friend. It's like they're your mate, but they're not like your close friend. And it's just something. There's something very different about family relationships and friendships, and the way that those are kind of like, I guess, valued in those parts of the countries as well, which struck me as well. And it's nice to see, nice to hear you say, you know, that when you left the Middle East, like you really missed it, because I felt like that too, exactly the same when I left Kuwait. I was like, huh. And even now, like I'm like, I see, you know, I've got friends still out there, and I see in their Snapchats and their Instagrams, I'm just like, damn, that's like, it's like a magical place. And it's kind of hard to explain, but
I completely agree. Do you, out of curiosity, do you ever plan to move back?
Well, I think, like, I mean, I'm 30 now, and I'm married and everything, and I'm kind of, I've done a lot of traveling. I've lived not in quite as many countries as you have, but I've lived all over the place, and I've certainly traveled all over the place and spent, you know, a few months here, a few months there. That's the joy of YouTube. You know, you can really work from anywhere, and whether you're online teaching or YouTubing or a mix of both, then you can go and live in Japan for a month, then you can go to China for a few months, then you can go to Malaysia and Thailand and Vietnam, and you can just bounce around, and that's been great. But I'm at a stage in my life now where, like, I'm 30 is not old, right? But like at the same time, I could easily just do this for another 10 years, and I do want to like have a family and like and have a bit of like root. I want to put some roots down eventually. So now I'm like, I've got to do it someday, right? Because, well, I don't have to, but I want to do it someday. Now's a good time. And will I still go back and visit these places? Do I want to spend 2 weeks in Kuwait or a month in Kuwait, a year, a month in Thailand? Yes, I would love to, but I probably would be reluctant to kind of move out everything and then shift everything to the Middle East. Because like when you're living out of a suitcase for months and years, and like, you know, you move into a place like it's an Airbnb, right? We got it for 4 weeks, then we've got to move out again. It's like, oh, just let me stay. You know, sometimes you just want some permanency.
I know.
And it's like it's an amazing experience, but at the same time, it's like, it's a lot of admin, isn't it?
Definitely. I completely agree. I'm in that dilemma a little bit now, because I was chartered out of Kuwait, with quarantined in the UK for a couple of weeks, and then had to, or 3 weeks, and then came to Cyprus, was quarantined there for 2 weeks. Now I've come to an Airbnb. I'm only here for a month, and it does get tiring. So I completely feel you. I can understand, especially wanting to settle down and everything. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like I've very much gone down like the total minimalism route, and I don't know whether you like, I saw you in your yellow shirt, which kept coming unbuttoned, and you're like, oh, I've just bought this shirt. It's like, I honestly can't remember the last time I bought a shirt. And to say that is so weird, right? But because when I'm traveling, it's like I arrive in a country with 22 kilos of stuff. If I buy something, then I've got to throw something else out. And like, you know, obviously like you can trade stuff, but you know, I go with my wife and she's like, oh, let's get this at the market. Let's get that. Let's buy this. And I'm like, everything that we buy now, like you can't really take it with you. And to be able to be back in the UK and actually buy stuff and order stuff on Amazon and take and go shopping and buy things for like the garden and the house. And it's like, I can actually keep this, you know, I don't have to get rid of this in 3 weeks. It's like, it's quite a nice feeling. So, so yeah, that's kind of where I am at the moment.
Definitely. I can understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, when it's kind of routine for us, when I was younger, when I was with my parents and my family, whenever we would move, it was kind of always pandemonium, and my dad would be a bit like, right, like just piling everything together and be like, do we need this? No. We need this? No. We need to sell this. You know, constantly kind of shedding off everything, which is in a way quite like therapeutic or cathartic. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Because you know, because you don't have that baggage, you're kind of always letting go. So I think there's like something good about it. But now at my age, like edging to 30, I'm starting to feel like, right, so what's my identity? Like,
yeah.
Am I Cypriot? Am I British? I've lived in the Middle East. Like for me, it can be very confusing as a third culture kid, just kind of, finding roots. So that'll be interesting. Yeah.
A lot of the people who watch my channel are in their mid-20s, right? So I've thought about this a little bit, and I think like your teenage years, you haven't got a clue who you are, have you? You're just kind of like, 1 minute you want to be like this, then next minute you want to be like that. And you're kind of just finding your way, like 100%. And then, you know, you turn 18, it's a bit different in the States, because I think you grew up a bit slower in the States, because like you're not even deemed an adult until you're like 21. Whereas in the UK, once, you know, your 18th birthday comes, that's it. You're a fully fledged adult. Then you go up to uni and you're still kind of like discovering things. And then like even in your early 20s, you're like, well, I've done school, I've done university or college or whatever. I've got a job, like now what? And it's kind of like, I feel like that next stage after that is your mid 20s. And then by the time you're late 20s, you kind of settled on some kind of permanence and some kind of character and identity. Now the difficulty comes, and you know, like you're a good example of this, and the kids I would teach in Kuwait, when they're like, well, I'm Egyptian nationality, but I've lived in Bahrain for 5 years, you know, and then I lived in Kuwait, and now I'm at university in Canada, but I've got family in the UK and I've got friends in India. Like, who am I? And where do I call home? Do I call anywhere home? And it's like, I mean, I haven't fully developed these ideas yet, but it's such a contrast to the kind of life that I had, because, you know, I was born in a little city, and I lived there for 18 years, and that was it. You know, that was it. Like all my friends I've known since I was 4 or 5 years old. I've got friends that I went to nursery with when I was 2, 3, and I'm still in touch with them. It's like such a different kind of livelihood from people like
I
yourself
envy
who've
you.
gone all over. Really? Like, do you really mean that? Because I think there's two sides to everything, and I'm grateful for the childhood that I've had. But then, of course, the other side is all those rich experiences and the confidence you get by just, you know, constantly being put in new situations and having to fend for yourself and stuff. So like, maybe you're the total opposite. At what point did you even start moving around the world? Was it kind of from very young, or?
Yeah, at the age of, what was it? The age of one?
Okay.
I think it was one or two is when we first moved to Bahrain for a few years. So I envy you because when we would move, I'd have friend circles that like they were friends with each other for ever since they were kids, and so they had such a strong relationship, such a strong connection, and I could never really connect with the kind of the inside jokes they had and just different things that you connect with when you know someone for so long. The good side of it is that you become very adaptable, like you're able to fit in quite easily, but you become adaptable in a way that's detached because you learn that you're never going to really get like that close to people because there's always a time when you're going to go away, or there's always a time. It's so transient, and so you always kind of don't completely invest, but at the same time, because you're so adaptable, you come across as someone who is very approachable, someone who's very, not to toot my own horn or anything, but you know, in general for third cultures kids, and so people like to be around that because you can, you know, be around a group of Indians and, you know, because you've lived in Dubai for so long and you've worked with Indians of all different classes and different jobs and all of that, you just know how to talk to them, you know the things to say to relate to them. And so immediately you become kind of a part of them, but then at the same time, you're never really a part of them. So so I envy you because I think that, you know, especially because it's just nice to have a groundedness at the beginning of your life and then make that choice. But saying that, I do not take it for granted. Take it for granted. I do not take it for granted at all, my experience. And I'm so thankful to my dad. I mean, my parents are still at it. My dad is 63. He's they're just leaving India now. They spent a couple of, after Dubai, they moved to India. They've actually just been allowed to fly out to Amsterdam, but my dad's just got a job in Kosovo now. So They're moving to Kosovo at 63. Like, he just does not stop. And I'm like, when are you going to stop this? But it's just, ever since he got out of home, that was just his complete and utter passion. And
what subject does he teach?
He started off teaching science, but now and biology and all of the variations, but now he was a principal. Now he's like higher, like he's like a director.
Right.
Like
so he's like the management. He more like manages schools rather than actually is in the classroom. Right. So.
Exactly.
Okay. Wow.
Exactly.
No, it's. I mean, there's no better way to see the world and to experience different countries, different cultures, different languages, different climates, everything, than to become a teacher. Right. Everyone can teach. Everyone has something they can teach. And to be born, you know, I saw a tweet the other day, Naval Ravikant or something. It was like the first lottery that you win is the country you're born in, or the first lottery ticket you ever play is which country you're born in. Right. And as a native English speaker, you're given this gift in being born in an English speaking country. I believe, I'm not saying this like it's fact, but I believe that you're just so lucky, and it's important to appreciate that, not take it for granted, but appreciate that you have this ability. And if you can nurture those skills and be able to convey that language to other people, you can travel the world. And even if you teach English, right? Like, you're a drama teacher. I was a physics teacher. Your dad's science director. But yeah, like, you know, if you want to climb the ladder and go up the top jobs, and you can make a lot of money as well in that way. But if you want to travel the world, you know, you can teach anywhere in the world. and there's no better way to do it than teaching.
Yeah, and I also think, on the point of the fact that we're privileged to be able to, you know, come from English-speaking country, I think that's what makes your channel so powerful, because having someone who has the power of being able to speak English, and there is a power in being British, you have to admit, especially in the Middle East, there is a power and there's a respect there, and there's kind of a sense of like, you know, I can get away with a little bit more, as true or not true as that might be. And so to have a British person who makes the effort to learn Arabic and then bridge the cultures, I think it's a really, really powerful thing, and really important, especially now when there's so much misunderstanding in the world between cultures. So yeah, not to get too like existential, but you know.
No, it's true. It's true. I mean, like, I've got a friend who says he's American, and he says, you know, he thinks that everyone in America should spend a year in a different country, right? And I think so many of the world's not problems, but misunderstandings would be quite easily reduced if I mean, I'm picking on Americans because America is such a big country, and let's face it, you don't ever have to leave. Like, America itself is like almost like its own world, right? You know, you can go skiing, you can go to beaches, they've got deserts. I'm looking at my world map now. You've got deserts, you've got coast, you've got like mountains, you've got lakes, you've got cold, you've got everything in America, right? Why would you ever leave America? But there's a downside to that, which is you don't realize that, like, there are another, you know, like 6.7 billion people out there, all with their own kind of lives and livelihoods and differences, and you're kind of missing out on, I think, understanding, exploring that. And then when it comes to certain aspects of being able to be compassionate and then have an appreciation, like, you know, America first, right? All this stuff. It's like, how about like world first? And I mean, I don't want to get political because blah, 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 but I think that would be a great thing if everyone just spent a year, just 1 year is enough. Like, if you spend 10 years, that's great, right? You get even more. But if you just spend that little bit of time abroad, then it can make a huge difference to your general understanding of the world.
I completely agree.
George, you have an amazing YouTube channel. I personally love it. You are an incredibly animated and talented person, and you're funny. You're a good storyteller, and I seriously would suggest that everyone watching this checks out your channel. I highly recommend people to go and check out your channel. So tell the people watching where they can find you.
So they can find me at George Anastazi on YouTube and on Instagram. And yeah, just to give you a little idea of what I do on my channel, I make videos sharing stories about culture through vlogs and docuseries. And so if you like learning about different cultures through my stories and other people's stories, then definitely check me out.
Amazing. All right, guys, that's all. And we'll see you next time.